going to call the Towing and Storage Advisory Board meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and for those listening on the internet. I'm going to call the roll. Joanne Messina, present. Jeremy Clark.
Here.
Thomas Griffin.
Here.
Kyle Jackson.
Present.
Amy Milstead.
Present.
Tasha Mora.
Here.
Jeanette Rash. Here. James Spears is absent. And Jimmy Zulke.
Here.
Very good. We have a quorum. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Did everybody have time to review the minutes? Are there any corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve. Amy
Second.
Milstead.
Okay, do we have a second?
Jeremy Clark.
Jeremy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved as presented. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to speak on anything on the agenda or off the agenda, please get a form and fill it out and turn it in to me. We have one speaker now. Jim Fuller, would you like to come up?
Gee, I didn't know I was gonna get to be first.
Yay, you get to be first.
Do I need to talk? Yeah, I need
Please
to talk
state
to that
your
microphone,
name.
don't I? I'm Jim Fuller with Fuller's Towing in Canton, Texas. And I don't want to argue about anything. I just want to bring some things to your attention that I think you might consider. And number one is the unscheduled inspections. You don't know what kind of a havoc that wreaks on a place when the guy walks in unannounced and you've got one girl at a dental appointment and somebody else at something else, and you're standing there with your feet hanging out trying to answer a bunch of questions. And I'd like to suggest that they make appointments to do these inspections. It would help everybody. I think it would make the thing go a lot smoother. Recently had an audit by the comptroller. They called me 2 weeks ahead and told me they were coming. The man presented himself and stayed 3 days in my office. When he got through, he found one thing. I had bought a pressure washer, and the invoice ticket didn't show that I paid any tax on it. That was the only complaint I got for 3 days. And so I got the right invoice that showed where I paid the sales tax on it, and he thanked me for my time and left without incident. And I think that could work the same way with TDLR inspectors if we could. I've been there 1972. I started the business, and I was there before the TDLR come into existence, and it's better since TDLR come here anyway. But I just wanted to make that suggestion that we think about. That's covered under 2308.059 of the book there, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention for some consideration. It would be, I think it'd work much better if we could do that on a scheduled basis instead of a Gestapo type deal, I call it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for coming. Do we have any more public comment?
Madam Chair, I have a written comment that we need to submit into the record.
Okay.
Good morning. Elizabeth Salinas Strittmatter for TDLR, General Counsel's Office. We have received a written comment that is dated November 3rd, but it was actually received on November 7th, so it was after the deadline for materials to be provided to you. We've had a gentleman from Arlington contact us expressing that he would like the board to consider reviewing 85.710 on the release of vehicles. He explains his position in the comment and makes the request that you consider putting it on a future agenda, and also says that if you do put it on a future agenda, he will plan to be here in person to listen to the discussion. So I will provide you with the comment, and you all can decide from there what you would like to do.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, next on the agenda is staff reports. And we've got licensing division first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Laura Hernandez with the Licensing Division. I submitted my advisory report, licensing staff report. In my last report, I had made some changes to some numbers because one of the sections listed tow trucks. And in previous years, the companies and the trucks were put together. When I noticed it was only tow trucks, I took the companies out and it made the numbers lower.
Okay.
And you had requested that I kind of clarify that. So what I did was I put sections for tow trucks with all the years and then a separate for the tow companies for every year. So now you have those broken up by every year and the numbers there.
Very good. Thank you.
And all the other items are there as far as tow operators, incident management, the vehicle storage facilities and owners or employees. Also, I don't know if you have any other questions regarding the report or the changes that were made?
I have a question on tow company population.
Mm-hmm.
For fiscal year 2018, we're showing 4,139.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as of October 22nd, we're showing 3,923. What is the end of the fiscal year? September?
August 31st.
So it looks like that's down over 200.
The one on the bottom, the tow company and tow truck population by numbers, that is a running every day. So every day, somebody will get canceled, and then the next day we could get 10. So this is a running count. It's daily. So it changes every day, and that's why it has the as of 10/22, because you could look the next day and the tow truck companies could actually be higher. And it doesn't get completely calculated till the end of the year, for the
So-
whole year.
Madam Chair, Carla James, TDLR.
Yes.
It's a picture of that day.
Okay.
And so you would see a picture every single day of a different number. It's not a cumulative number. Is that accurate?
But it's
Yeah.
still down 200 in 2 months. That's a lot in 2 months. To lose 216 tow companies in 2 months, that just seems like even though it's a snapshot,
Mhm.
it hasn't been that long since the end of the fiscal year. To me,
Right.
it was just notable.
Okay, and I can find out exactly what numbers that is pulling. I provide the snapshot only because it breaks it down for consent private property.
Right,
And there's no other,
Okay.
on our fiscal year one, it doesn't break it down that way.
Maybe just verify the totals.
I
but
will.
It just seems like a lot.
I will.
But that's the only question I had. Did anybody else?
We agency consent tow available, and also rules for the tow.
The date, October 26th?
October was in response to the declaration from the governor on the 18th and 16th and the 19th for the counties that were affected by the flooding. So I just wanted to mention that those were enacted.
Have you had a lot of activity on
We didn't have very much.
not much? Okay. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is customer service.
Good morning, board
Good morning.
members. Misty Maldonado de Leon. I am the manager for the tow industry and customer service. I had Christine give you an updated statistics chart just so that you could see the we met last June. So it shows a consistent picture of emails and phone calls. As you can see, this industry prefers phone calls. We do want to solicit more for customers to send emails, and that would be to the cstowing@tdlr.texas.gov. It gives us more time to do research and give them a more detailed answer on scenarios that they have, whether it be compliance or any other questions that they may have. Our call center is open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, so we just want to make sure and let everyone know 7 to 8 is our slowest time in the mornings, and then 5 to 6 in the evenings
So the
is
best
better
time
to
to call
call.
is your first hour and your last hour.
Right. So that's helpful. However, when they are holding, we do have a callback feature, so they can choose a callback as
in line
opposed to
to be called
holding.
back.
Right. they don't lose their place in line on that. We do offer also help at tdlr.texas.gov while they're holding, and it's an additional email address they can send in any questions, and those get answered within 24 hours. We also do Facebook and Twitter, so we answer those responses as well, so we welcome those on there. And then we also have on the landing page for the industry to sign up for email updates. So just wanted to keep everyone updated on that since we hadn't met since
Very
June.
good.
All right.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I don't have anything. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is enforcement.
Board members, good morning. My name is Michael Shirk. I'll be presenting the enforcement report.
Good morning.
I think you've received our written materials, and I'm just going to review them, but I'm mostly here for any questions you may have. The case summaries are really an attempt to give you an overview of what we see coming across our desks and how we respond to them. The first case is Ronald Vick. His dual incident management tow operator and vehicle storage facility license was revoked by operation of law. He was incarcerated in a penitentiary for a felony conviction. So that's one of the reasons that we move forward on license revocation. It's not a choice we have, but when we learn about a felony conviction resulting in incarceration, we do revoke by operation of law. The next case is Atlas Towing and Storage. This is a tow company out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, an agreed order imposing an administrative penalty for $18,250, and a probated revocation existing until May 1st, 2019 was imposed, along with a requirement that the company provide or pay for all tow truck drivers to receive continuing education in the area of laws and regulations governing tow operations. As you can see, the violations were the employment of an unlicensed operator, towing in the absence of legal authority, failure to make reports to law enforcement, and its acceptance. The failure to make a report to law enforcement after it had accepted a non-consent tow for storage at its VSF. Because these are third violations, we were able to negotiate a probated revocation in this case. Eurostar Wreckers, the next case, they're out of, I believe, Houston, and again, an administrative penalty was imposed by the means of an agreed order of $5,700, and a probated revocation was placed upon the towing license for 1 year. In addition, because this was an agreed order, refunds to vehicle owners have been made. This was engaging in towing operations after the revocation of a license, towing without legal authority, and charging fees in excess of the local municipality's ordinance. These were third violations, and this is why we were able to negotiate a probated revocation. And I'll just point out that sometimes probated revocations are really an effective tool to get tow companies and more licensees in general to really comply strictly with the law. And that not only does that allow them to keep themselves in business and then maintain the employment of their operators, but it sort of creates a model for other tow companies and other businesses, licensees in the area, to see that tow companies, VSFs, can be run in compliance with the law and still make a profit. I think sometimes out there's some bad actors, and the word gets out that it's easier to earn a dishonest dollar than an honest dollar, and I think that we're, by using probated revocations, showing businesses that it's perfectly there. The businesses can be run in strict compliance with the law and still turn a profit. The next case is Steve Hernandez, DBA Hernandez Towing. This again resulted in an agreed order imposing an administrative penalty of $3,500 for failing to perform a tow in a safe and competent manner and giving false information to HPD. There was some concern, I think, last meeting about what is exactly the failure to perform a tow in a safe and competent manner. And staff completely recognizes the reality that towing is difficult, it's fraught with danger, and it's often conducted in order to move the car promptly before trouble develops. So we don't look at just mere negligence. We really look at a showing of a standard of care so below what the industry expects that we can charge it as unsafe and incompetent behavior. I mean, our position is that this is what insurance is for. If cars get damaged, insurance claims get made, and it's not an administrative penalty.
Michael?
Yes.
Can you tell us what exactly he did?
No, I can't, but
Okay.
I can look that up for
Okay,
you.
I was just curious of an example of that.
I asked a question, it might be for, actually, the one child is the facts are very intimate. If I may, would it be
That would be
proper for me
wonderful.
to do
Thank
so?
you. Thank you, Officer Griffin.
Yeah,
Mr.
we don't
Hernandez.
need a lot of detail, but just kind of what was the safe and competent?
Mr. Hernandez responded to a call over the police radio regarding a gentleman whose vehicle caught fire on the freeway. He loaded it, first of all, without law enforcement authorization, but that wasn't part of the, say, unsafe tow. He loaded it onto a flatbed and had the motorist in the tow truck with him. He took a curve on the freeway, and the motorist's vehicle fell completely off. He then stopped, the motorist got out, and Mr. Hernandez left him on the side of the road with his vehicle.
Those are facts you think I'd remember.
And then when questioned about it, he lied and got one of his employees to lie to an officer in my office. He said, no, that wasn't me, that vehicle wasn't even in service at the time. So he went to great lengths to avoid culpability.
Okay, thank you.
And that makes a good point that enforcement, we receive our complaints from any number of sources. Law enforcement often files with us, insurance companies, special investigative units from insurance companies. We receive complaints from the National Insurance Crime Bureau as well as from consumers themselves. And so we really are a central place where people look to enforce and evaluate legal violations in the tow and VSF industry. And I'll point, I should have mentioned this earlier, but the Stanch Auto Works case, which is the one about to come up, and Atlas Towing and Storage, they both had gone to administrative hearings at the State Office of Administrative Hearings. And so I don't want you to get the sense that we're not prosecuting these cases at SOA, but we really do try to come to agreed orders and reconciliation with the businesses. So the last case is Stanch Auto Works. In this instance, after an administrative hearing, but before a proposal for decision was issued, the parties entered into terms which resulted in an agreed order imposing an administrative penalty of $11,000 for 4 instances of fraudulently transferring vehicles from the storage facility, vehicle storage facility, to an unregulated body shop. That unregulated body shop is Stanch Auto Works, the exact same name as the VSF, which is the same name as the tow company. Respondent is in compliance with these penalties. And this is an interesting case because I'll just point out, we're seeing a lot of these cases coming to us now. I mean, they're exploding. You may remember the Stans case a couple of years ago that got pretty good press coverage involving HPD and TDLR, in which we shut down a VSF and a tow company for making these sort of unauthorized or fraudulent transfers to unregulated body shops. Houston has done a good job of moving those violations outside of the city limits, but outside of the city of Houston, in the counties, we're seeing a huge explosion in what we're calling flipping cases. And in fact, you may have seen a press release that we issued just a couple of weeks ago trying to inform consumers about this problem. But basically, flipping involves the tow truck driver or a VSF employee obtaining fraudulent signatures from vehicle owners to move the vehicle from a vehicle, to take a vehicle directly from an incident to a unregulated body shop, or transfer a vehicle from a VSF to an unregulated body shop. And as soon as that transfer occurs, there's an administrative fee of $500, a transfer fee of $500, which is usually maybe 50 yards, if that much. A teardown fee for removing a couple of bolts of $500. Of course, the storage fees go up to $50 a day, and then they do all the other things they can to maximize the fee. Those are typically totals. So there's, and they are recognizable as total losses. So there's no reason for the body shop to want them except to impose these automatic fees. And in the past, what we've seen is the insurance companies have just simply paid the money to get the cars out of the body shop, the $3,000–4,000 for less than a week of storage. Because of really excellent work with HPD, the National Insurance Crime Bureau, The International Association of Special Investigative Units, insurance companies aren't paying that money anymore. They're filing with us instead, and so our caseload in these flipping cases is going up astronomically. They're difficult and complex cases, but they're ones that we are addressing aggressively.
That's good to know, because this has been going on for a long time, and I've never seen one on our report, other than the one the one you mentioned
Yeah,
earlier.
stands when we shut them down with an emergency order.
That's good news that you're able to spend some resources on these type of cases and get
Well,
some.
Ms. Messina, I think a couple of factors have come into play. First, as I said, these entities outside TDLR are recognizing when fraud has been committed, and they're intervening, and it's not simply paying the money to get the vehicle out of storage. In addition, I think we're getting a more sophisticated model in place in enforcement and investigations. In fact, I'll report on this later, we did a training with our investigators, because oftentimes people would look at the authorization form signed by the vehicle owners and say, oh, they signed an authorization, nothing we can do. Or they'd say, the car's at a body shop, we don't have jurisdiction over body shops. Now, those are no longer barriers to our prosecution of the cases. So
That's
I
good.
think we're keeping up. We're not quite as good as the bad guys yet, but we're getting there.
Well, this is a good thing. This is very good.
Absolutely.
The next thing I wanted to report on briefly was just some personnel changes. I don't know if you've met Tony Reed, who's our new prosecutor with enforcement. TOW VSF has 2 attorneys assigned to it at this point.
Tony?
Tony Reed.
Welcome, Tony.
In addition, the enforcement staff has been increased by the hiring of Rebecca Burkhalter, who comes to us from, I think, DPS, and Bob Rennick, who had been with TDLR in the criminal history evaluation program, and now he's came back after retirement and is working inspections and other types of cases like that. And then Dustin Exner, who I thought was going to be here, is working as our Director of Enforcement's assistant to try to keep things moving through her office as well. So we're getting new people, skilled people. As you can see, everybody we've brought on has got immense skills in working with in public service, and their commitment to TDLR is absolutely wonderful. It's good to have them. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about something that's not on your report. It's our outreach and internal efforts. We've been doing some pretty exciting things in enforcement, TOW VSF specifically, under what I consider the mandate of our strategic plan, Goal 3, Steps 2 and 3, which direct staff to use communication strategies to share information and develop new communications channels, as well as develop and distribute reference materials to inform consumers about legal rights and the role that TDLR can play. I think this is an essential function of staff, and we've been doing some pretty exciting things recently. I already alluded to the press release that was generated to try to get people more aware of flipping. July 17th, staff, myself, Harrigan Demos, who's Director of Inspections, and a couple, Sammy Lynch and another investigator, met over at Houston Police Department to have a roundtable discussion with the National Insurance Crime Bureau and ICB, insurance carriers, and International Association of Special Investigative Units, as well as, I've already said, some insurance companies, to talk about the flipping, how bad the problem is, where it's located, how we can better share information and coordinate our responses, and that really is paying off nicely. On August 30th, I told you briefly, the TOW attorneys had a good 3-hour training with investigators to go over the changes in the law from last session, the changes in the regulations, as well as new models of investigating and looking at the flipping cases, because those flipping cases, it boils down to 15 seconds. It boils down to what was the vehicle owner told and what were the circumstances when they signed that authorization, subrogation, indemnification. Reasonable would never sign, but as you know, and after a wreck, people aren't necessarily reasonable because their loved ones are being transported by ambulance, their car is on fire, there's lots of lights streaming. On October the 16th, I presented at a conference at the North Texas meeting of the International Association of Special Investigative Units. talk to them about flipping cases, what to look for, how to process them, the role of TDLR as a resource, and how we can better combine our activities. You know, SIUs are generally, well, they always come out of insurance companies. Many insurance companies have the SIU division, or sometimes they call it the fraud division. And when they turn a case over to fraud, when they work up a case, probably not as good as our investigators, but they do a good job. And so it's always nice to know if an insurance company, after filing a complaint, has had it reviewed or worked on by SIU or their fraud office, and we've developed some protocols for them turning over all their documents to us so we could use it in the investigation. Last week, I was pleased to be offered an opportunity to speak, and of course I spoke at the Insurance Council of Texas. This was a colloquium over at Texas Department of Insurance. It was, again, a good opportunity to share what TDLR is doing, as well as to meet investigators and prosecutors with the Office of the Attorney General and the Texas Department of Insurance, and some of the other people with these private entities I've been talking about, AISU and NICB, as well as some of the carriers. So we're getting out there into the field, talking about what TDLR does and how we can more effectively address common concerns. Tomorrow, November the 15th, I'm actually going to be on a webinar, which is again being sponsored by the Insurance Council of Texas. We're expecting about 400 participants, and once again, the topic is going to be the identification, prosecution, and sharing of information in these fraud cases that we're seeing. And I really cannot stress how much these are exploding in our offices. I mean, how many we're probably getting one a day now, and they're complicated, they're difficult. And they oftentimes depend on the cooperation of the participation of the vehicle owner, who generally doesn't have a dog in the fight, so keeping that alive is the tough part of what we do. And then just yesterday, Lieutenant Sauer over the Auto Theft Division invited TDLR to come and speak to officers in the division to bring them up to date on changes in the law and enforcement tactics. He's going to talk to his officers about what they need to know, and hopefully TDLR will be able to address some of that. I feel like I've been going on forever, so if you have any questions, please interrupt me.
Well, this is good news. This is good news. It's way overdue.
Thank you.
It's awesome that people are coming together now to tackle this issue. It's a huge issue.
Yeah, well, we're finally talking to each other and saying, you know what, we've got the same thing. And we're getting complaints from a lot of sophisticated sources.
Can I ask a question for you?
Yes.
In Houston, we have a city ordinance regarding soliciting by record drivers, and it's pretty clear as to when they can and cannot do so. In your investigations, are you finding that, how complicit are the actual record drivers in the flipping?
I would say they account for 30% of the flipping cases. I mean, you're not going to believe this, but we see booty calls out there on social media where the word is being given out, if you bring a vehicle to my body shop, you will get $1,000. And, no questions.
Does that tell you how complicit they are?
Of course, the $1,000,
Well-
the $1,000 only is paid not only if the vehicle is brought there, but the vehicle owner has signed an authorization. And so we're seeing tow truck drivers driving around with authorizations for body shops. And again, the sophisticated, embedded, and very muscular practice of these entities can't be overstated, because they will have their VSF, then they'll have a body shop that has exactly the same name, within 30 or 40 feet of the VSF, and then they'll have a tow company with the same name. So consumers are naturally misled, and so yes, the tow drivers are a big part of the problem, because they're getting the authorization signed, and because there's that bounty out there for them to bring in the cars to the body shops. But we're learning their tactics. We're learning. On page 3 of my materials are the key statistics. You can see that we're actually resolving more cases than we're opening at this point. We're moving forward with enhanced agreed orders, because we're finding that not only do people comply with the law when they've agreed to comply with the law, as opposed to being told to comply with the law, but they also have more likelihood of paying their administrative penalties and engaging in the terms of probation that we might impose, such as going to continuing education classes. The collections are they speak for themselves. In tow, we assessed $172,000 in penalties. So far, we've collected $39,000. VSF is a little bit better, with $89,000 in assessed penalties and a little less than 50% payment in the VSF realm. I think on the next page, page 4, is an interesting statistic, because if you look at the top 10 violations and disciplinary actions, you're seeing a slight movement of the lower class violations, the sort of technical violations, the size of the signage on the side of a vehicle, the data plates, the rudeness to customers going down, and we're getting more of the illegal tows, employing unlicensed people, and fraud and deception. VSFs are, the top violation is typically the failure to send notice, and we prosecute those aggressively because that is the only way that vehicle owners are able to maintain possession of their vehicles, is by getting proper notice. Which I'll note is one of the problems with the flipping cases, because a car goes into a body shop, no notice is sent. And so it's up to the vehicle owner and first lien holder and the insurance carrier to actually locate the vehicle, because people aren't given copies of documents that should otherwise be given.
I have a question about the statistics, if I may. So on the key statistics, where we read a number of cases resolved, can you help me understand what does resolved mean? Is that inclusive of cases where there's a violation that's been found, or one that's not been found, or disciplinary action?
Yes,
Do we have a
absolutely.
breakdown?
Yeah, that's inclusive of anything that comes to our desk,
Okay.
whether it's an insufficient evidence finding, whether it's resolved, an informal resolution between the vehicle owner and the licensee, which we really encourage. Our charge mostly is consumer protection and not regulatory oversight. These companies are trusted to comply with the law. So informal resolutions where just a refund is made is included. That also includes agreed orders, which go to our executive director, as well as cases that go to the State Office for Administrative Hearing and then result in full commission hearing and consideration for the issue of a commission order. So everything from insufficient evidence all the way up to the formal hearing process.
And so then on the page 4, where the top 10 violations and disciplinary actions, we have a count of how many per tow and per VSF, but what is the collective number? So I see 8, but how many violations came up where it needed disciplinary action? So I'm just kind of curious as to, I see that, for example, for tow without authority, illegal tow, there was 8 that were founded, but of how many? Because I'm curious of the percentage, like.
We don't have that breakdown. We can certainly provide it for you in future reports. What you're asking is the ratio of tow without authority against the total number of allegations of tow without authority?
Right, so I guess what I'm looking for is to know, very similarly to the key statistics, if what I'm looking at page 4 is these are the violations and disciplinary actions, but what is that total? Because I have that these are numbers through September of fiscal year 2019. So what is the total number that were found? Because I just want to make sure that, we're asked to participate in committees and such, explore rules, but I want to know how big is the problem that we're investing so much energy and time to help with some of the rules. So where I see 8, I wanted to know 8 out of how many of the total that were there. Maybe I'm not asking the question.
For one thing,
accurately.
Tasha, remember, this is only from the end of September till now, or till whenever this report was done. So this is not a very long time frame for these 8 violations.
Okay, so this is just September.
Yeah, it says through September of fiscal year 2019. So that means it started,
Probably since.
it's only 1 month, right?
Yeah, it's 1 month.
It's 1
Because
month.
the fiscal year ends August 31st. So this is 30 days statistics on these enforcement
It's not October.
items that went to
No,
enforcement.
August. end of the fiscal year.
But are you wanting more like, what percentage of the cases resolved were truly violations? Is that
Right,
what you're wanting?
yes.
Just the total, not specific, everything detailed, but just kind of a percentage of, we had this many cases resolved, and out of that, 10% were dismissed, and
Yes, yes, and however many percent required disciplinary action and such. And I know it's a more of a breakdown, but the consumer has a right to file a complaint, but I want to know of that number of complaints, what is the breakdown of what we're seeing? That were either insufficient, informal orders, agreed orders, administrative hearings. It helps when guiding us on how much of is the sky falling? You know, do we have a massive problem, or what level of problem do we have? I mean, clearly, if there's violations, it's a problem, but it's just, I would like a little more information, so it's, we're comparing apples to apples and such.
Well, we do know from page 3 that in the same time period, we had 654 tow cases come in. And so the resolution of these cases, what you're asking for is the total number of cases that were found in some block period of time, the
Yes.
number that were closed for insufficient, the number that disciplinary action was issued.
Well, it was confusing to me when I saw the number of cases that were open were 654, and the number of cases that were resolved was 797. Obviously, there's a higher number. That means that there was already existing cases. So I don't have that number to carry through. So there was already existing cases, and I don't know what that number is. But then I see that we had a number of cases that were recently opened, and during that time period, what was resolved.
Well, our analytics department is pretty amazing, and so I will get with them.
it's
and-
always a good thing when they resolve more than they open. That means they're clearing up the backlog.
Right.
So that's basically what these numbers tell us.
Right.
think that-
I just
didn't-
don't know what the backlog is.
Right. And I'd be curious to know what that is as well. If that information is available, it would be good to know what that is.
And it's interesting, I think all the programs are going through an evaluation right now to try to set some criteria of how quickly a case must move through.
Right.
I know inspections or investigations has got 60 days, and we're trying to reformulate after, I think, was it the auditor came through and asked us to try to be more specific in the number of days. So I think that information will be getting to you, and certainly I'll check with our people in analytics, see if we can break down like that.
Okay.
Because it is an interesting relationship between those two sets of numbers.
Okay.
Can I answer any questions while I'm up here? Thank you for your attendance and attention.
Thank you, Michael. Next on the agenda, Education and Examination Division.
Good morning, board members. My name
Good
is
morning.
John Schildwalker. I'm with the Education Examination Division. I don't have quite as exciting numbers presented for you like we did flipping and burning and cars falling off things, but we do have some interesting numbers on continuing education. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
You need to do better next time.
I
It's
will.
more
I
exciting.
will certainly do some more research on flipping. That's where it sounds like a problem I can definitely look into. The numbers you have in front of you are numerical, statisticals, and some more graphic illustrations of the continuing education numbers we have in our division. I'll be
I think
happy.
we got an updated report.
Yes, you
passed
did.
out.
Yes, you should have received an updated report today, along with some, like I said, some graphical illustrations of some of the numbers we have. I
Any
can't
questions?
claim that I've made any of these. They're all done very well, I believe. I believe they're fairly easy to.
Very good.
Thank
We look forward to your next report.
I'll be here next time.
Next is RPM, Regulatory Program Management.
Good morning. Todd Forrester with Regulatory Program Management. You have our report, so you all know what that says. Latasha and I did attend the tow show. We had a great time. We answered a ton of questions from the industry. We attended the meeting on Sunday with Southwest Tow. Nick went with us. I think Nick had a pretty good time. Learned a lot. Got to meet some good people.
We appreciate your attendance
Not a
there
problem.
every year. It's very helpful, and we appreciate you taking the time too, Nick, to be there, to meet some folks, so it's always appreciated.
We have fun. It's good to get out there and see members from the industry and really get to know their concerns and see what we can do. It gives us a pulse on what's happening, so we can try to head off any potential problems that may occur, that may be happening that we're not aware of yet. We also are working with the Office of Strategic Communication to, we're trying to set up an industry-specific area on the website. We're going to break out parts of the compliance manual to have a place where it doesn't get muddy between where the consumer goes to look for stuff and where the industry goes to look for stuff, so that some of that information is going to be a little bit more accessible to members of the industry in one specific spot. We're also looking at the internet trainings. That's kind of where wanting to see that be put. We're still working on that, and now I'm going to hand it off to Latasha for internal efforts.
Good morning, Latasha Poland. I don't really have much. I just have that I did do a training with the customer service department on the 27th of October. It was basically just like a question and answer session, getting questions that they have from the industry over the phone answered, or just telling them how to route those questions. We did present them like a manual as well for the customer service representative. That's all.
Any questions?
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Field Inspection Division.
Good morning, board members. My name is Fernando Reyes. I'm the South Region Manager with the Field Inspections Division, and I'll be giving you my report. It's not quite as exciting as enforcements, but we'll try to make it better next time. We start off with our most common violations. You have those in front of you. Vehicle signage down to unlicensed operator activity for the vehicle storage facilities. Storage lot signs down to notice to the vehicle owner, lien holder. Personnel updates. North Region Inspector Sharon Hollis resigned effective September 30, 2018. Field Inspections wishes Sharon all the best in her future endeavors. And we did post for that position, and it recently closed. So we are reviewing applications at this time. Going on to inspection statistics, this will give you a recap of our 2018 fiscal year numbers. Look at the bottom. You have 1762 tow truck companies. That's for 2018. Tow trucks, 2,220. And vehicle storage facilities would be 481. Grand total 4,463. And that's for fiscal year 2018. Right now, we only have up to the September when the report was due, so we don't have any numbers for those other months right now. Any other questions? No?
Questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great week and happy holidays.
Thank you, you too. Okay, next up is Executive Office.
Madam Chair, Nick Fuenas. Welcome. Thank you, board members, for being here today. Thank you for your service. Here to bring you a summary of what's been happening around the agency since you guys last met in June. As you're aware, our staff has been preparing for the upcoming January start for the session of the Texas Legislature. This summer, we completed our strategic plan and our legislative appropriations request. We've also been participating in interim legislative hearings. Most recently, our Executive Director, Brian Francis, testified at a hearing of the House Committee on Licensing and Administrative Procedures Prior to that, TDLR presented at a joint hearing of the House Committee on Licensing and Administrative Procedures and the House Committee of Business and Industry. We also testified at a joint hearing of the Governor's Budget Office and LBB, as well as hearings of the Senate Business and Commerce Committee and the House Natural Resources Committee. Again, all this in preparation of the next legislative session in January. Also would like to visit with you a little bit about our outreach, with this program. More specifically, our web traffic for the towing and vehicle storage website. Over the past 6 months, your site's had 122,941 page views. That's an average of 668 page views per day. We had a whopping 62% of those accessed your site from a mobile device, meaning 59% from a smartphone, another 3% from a tablet, compared to 38% that accessed the site from a desktop computer. The top reasons for visiting the site, number one was consumer information about towing, followed by laws and rules, and forums and publications. Also wanted to remind you of our social media presence. We are active on Facebook and Twitter, so please follow those sites to keep up with TDLR news and events. Also wanted to remind you that your group does have a group of about 27,000 subscribers that receive various email blasts pertaining to this program, and if anyone is not receiving those, they simply can go to our website and subscribe and immediately start receiving them. Also wanted to mention the press release that was in your packet on auto flipping. That was a real team effort around here, led by Michael Shirk, and we appreciate him reaching out to us. But since you last met, we have added a new public information officer, and I'm proud to introduce her here today. She's Tila Mange, and she's back in the back, and just wanted to point her out and embarrass her a little bit. But she's done a great job for us, and she's responsible for putting together that press release and working with Michael on it. Just wanted to thank her and Michael for those efforts. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, be glad to answer them.
Very good. Thank you for the statistics on the website and the emails. That's good to know. It's interesting, very interesting. Anyone else have anything for Nick? All right. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, item F, discussion and possible recommendations regarding proposed amendments for Chapter 86.
Elizabeth Salinas Strittmatter again with General Counsel. We are picking up where we left off at the last meeting on our rule addition to Chapter 86, specifically to 86.705, where we were instructed by SB 1501 during last session to make rules relating to the relocation of vehicles from one place on a parking facility to another place on the parking facility. The version that you have in your packets was, we made changes during the last meeting, and then we sent it out for publication. It was published on October 5th, and the closing date was November 5th. During that time period, we only received one comment, and that comment was from the Texas Apartment Association in favor of the change, commenting that they were glad to see that we had put in an exemption for emergencies on the notice requirement, and also stating that they would be doing some education for their folks on the application of these rules and to discuss how they are written and how they need to be applied, and they would like further guidance from the department if, in fact, these rules are adopted by the commission. So if, in fact, the rules are adopted, we'll be talking with the Texas Apartment Association to see what kind of support they need, and perhaps it will be a joint effort between GC, RPM, and enforcement, since we all kind of have a stake in the rules. So the rule with the Texas Apartment Association, I think the only thing I want to note is that they believe that the 72-hour notification time frame will reduce confusion in notification of vehicle owners and assist in the scheduling of maintenance projects. That was kind of my takeaway from their comment. So the change that we made last time was to 86705 N1. The rule now reads, except in case of an emergency involving threat of imminent danger to property, signs complying with this section are installed in the parking facility a minimum of 72 hours preceding relocation. The portion that was added after the last meeting was the except in case of an emergency involving threat of imminent danger to property. There were no further changes, no additional comments. At this time, these rules are ready for the board to make a decision on whether they'd like to propose adoption by the commission. I would also like to note that originally our commission meeting was scheduled for November 30th, and I just received word that it's going to be pushed into probably the second week in December, but we don't have a firm date. So if you move to present these to the commission, they will be presented at the next board meeting, which will likely take place in December. So just so you know what the time frame is.
Okay, how long until they're effective after the board, after they're
Believe-
approved by the commission?
I believe we did an effective date of January 1.
Okay.
Okay, so it will be pretty quick after they're adopted, if in fact they are adopted.
Okay.
Would the board like to make a motion on the rule changes?
I'll make a motion, we accept as they're written here with the changes.
I, Tasha Mora, second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, they're on to the commission.
They will be on their way to the commission. Thank you very
good.
much.
Thank you, Elizabeth,
Mhm.
for all your help
Yeah.
on this. Agenda item G, update from TOW VSF Enforcement Work Group. The update is that we're meeting right after this meeting, so we haven't taken any action. That's our update. Recommendations for agenda items for next board meeting. And just the date and time, I'd kind of like to talk about the date and time as well, so we can think about agenda items. Is there anything, any dates we need to meet right now? We have sessions starting, we need to think about that, so in scheduling our date, our topics. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I was speaking with our staff earlier before the meeting. Just for your consideration, we are currently almost getting backlogged into February on various board meetings. We would like to propose that you attempt to set a board meeting in March or later.
ooh, okay. That's right in the middle of session. Early March, that's spring break session, that's a bad time. We don't have any dates in February?
No, I'm being told that February is pretty full.
Okay,
Madam Chair, Carla James, TDLR. Let us check the calendar and we'll
Okay.
get back with y'all. I can tell by some looks on faces that's
March is not
a
good.
little bit further out than you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So we'll take a look, and Christina will reach out.
Okay. Yeah. February. Okay. Yeah, let's check that calendar real close.
Yeah, we'll get back to you.
Okay. Topics? Okay, we will have a work group report at that meeting, the TOW VSF Enforcement Work Group. And if nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Jeremy Clark.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.